For months, the tone of American foreign policy has shifted from stern warnings to unmistakable preparation. A U.S. aircraft carrier strike group now moves through the Caribbean. Coast Guard and Navy units shadow the waters between Florida and South America. Strange explosions take out narco boats with no official explanation beyond vague statements about interdiction operations. Meanwhile, reports whisper that Washington has quietly approved military action inside Venezuela if necessary. What once sounded like speculative cable news chatter suddenly feels historic and dangerous. For the first time in modern history, the United States appears poised to wage a direct campaign, not only against transnational cartels, but possibly a sovereign nation in its own hemisphere. And like many conflicts before, it begins wrapped in urgency, justified by real threats, and propelled forward without the public fully realizing just how close the country may be to a new war. Criminal cartels reframed as terror organizations. Cartel violence and fentanyl smuggling have devastated communities across the United States. The human cost is real and heartbreaking. Politicians and analysts have grown impatient with incremental tactics that have failed to curb cartel wealth, scale, or brutality. But what transformed frustration into potential war was the decision by Washington to start labeling cartel groups as foreign terrorist organizations. That change in classification might sound technical, just a bureaucratic adjustment. In reality, it redefines the battlefield. Terror groups trigger a different response than criminals. Terrorists can be targeted by drones, special operations raids, extraterritorial strikes, and covert military authorities. Police agencies still matter, but they are no longer the primary drivers. This shift does not only grant the government legal leverage, it reshapes public perception. Americans heard for decades that Al-Qaeda justified endless war. Now officials repeatedly reference cartels in the same breath, and even invoke comparisons to Al-Qaeda. But cartels are not motivated by religious extremism, nor do they pursue ideological conquest. They are business empires built on fear, violence, and profit. Treating them like insurgent jihadists may feel tough, but it risks forcing a square peg into a round hole. Even more unsettling, cartels already have logistical networks, informants, money lines, and distribution channels inside the United States. If they eventually see themselves not as criminal targets but as enemies in a declared conflict, they could respond as enemies do, in American streets and cities. Why Venezuela suddenly matters. As dramatic as the war on cartels narrative is, the most explosive development lies further south. U.S. officials believe Venezuela's authoritarian leader, Nicolas Maduro, collaborates with cartel factions and transnational criminal gangs such as Tren de Aragua. This perception, combined with Venezuela's collapse into corruption, economic ruin, and repression, has turned Caracas into a potential battlefield. The White House appears to be signaling two messages at once. First, it claims the U.S. must disrupt cartel supply lines and criminal havens. Second, it suggests regime change in Venezuela could emerge as a necessary consequence if Maduro refuses to cooperate. But dictators do not abandon power because foreign leaders wish they would. If American fighter jets strike Venezuelan territory or U.S. special forces land there, even for a limited operation, this would mark a dramatic escalation. That moment would not look like a police operation. It would look like war. And once troops enter, logic and momentum exert pressure to keep going, to avoid appearing weak or indecisive. Many observers cannot help noticing the eerie resemblance to earlier conflict. America went into Afghanistan to destroy Al-Qaeda, then toppled the Taliban. It invaded Iraq to neutralize threats, and soon found itself trying to rebuild a country while fighting a vicious insurgency. Quick victories turned into long commitments. Promised exits stretched into decades. Today, policymakers sound confident. This time is different. History warns the opposite. Confusion at the core. What is the actual objective? Perhaps the most concerning aspect of the unfolding situation is the absence of a clear, consistent end goal. Depending on the day, officials speak of eliminating drug flows, dismantling cartels, promoting democracy in Venezuela, countering Chinese influence in Latin America, and ensuring stability in global oil markets. Every motivation carries weight, but when leaders list 5 missions, it usually means no mission has been truly defined. Wars flounder when they begin without clarity. If the US launches strikes to weaken cartels, but cartel networks adapt, will the mission expand? If Venezuela retaliates, does the United States then seek to topple Maduro? If his government collapses, who takes charge? What happens if civilians resist US presence? And how long does America stay to stabilize the fallout? These are not distant hypotheticals. They are the questions that haunted commanders and diplomats throughout Iraq and Afghanistan. The absence of answers today feels like déjà vu. Military power can smash targets. It cannot build governments, economies, or societies overnight. Without a structured plan, victory can rapidly blur into occupation. Lessons from Colombia, and why they matter now. Analysts often point to Colombia's long struggle against the FARC as a useful comparison. That campaign blended intelligence collaboration, financial targeting, local military support, and social investment, not just bombing runs. It lasted years, required political patience, and demanded billions of dollars. But it produced lasting progress. Colombia did not fall into civil chaos after major battles ended because strategy came before strikes. If Washington intends to confront cartels, even indirectly through pressure on sanctuary states like Venezuela, a similar comprehensive model is likely required. Yet nothing about current messaging suggests long-term investment or coordination. Instead, the tone feels rushed, reactive, and driven by dramatic optics rather than deliberate structure. A naval blockade can squeeze illegal commerce and pressure governments without firing missiles. Coordinated intelligence and economic disruption can cripple cartel empires. Strengthening border technology and boosting anti-drug treatment programs at home can reduce demand, the engine behind the entire narco economy. These methods lack the cinematic punch of a televised airstrike, but they achieve more durable outcomes. War rarely produces sustainable solutions to complex criminal systems. Strategy does. A nation sleepwalking toward a fight. The American public is tired from decades of conflict abroad, but fatigue is not protection against unintended war. The biggest wars in U.S. history did not begin with major invasions. They started with slow drifts, advisors, then air support, then troops for stability, then years of entanglement. No president campaigns on endless conflict. It emerges when urgency overwhelms caution. Today, the tone feels familiar. Words like necessity, duty, and defense echo across press briefings. Officials assure the public that these actions are limited, controlled, and moral. Yet history teaches that the first step onto foreign soil, no matter how small or justified, creates momentum far more powerful than intentions. The real threshold. Airstrikes can be paused, naval patrols can be redeployed. But the moment American soldiers arrive inside Venezuela, the conflict changes shape. That single step would trigger global scrutiny, domestic pressure, and likely retaliation. It transforms operations into a war posture. The Pentagon knows it, analysts know it, adversaries know it. The biggest question hanging in the air is not whether America can defeat Venezuelan forces or cartel fighters. It undoubtedly can. The real question is, what happens the day after success? Who governs? Who secures cities? How long until insurgent cells attack U.S. forces? How does Washington prevent violence from spilling north across the hemisphere? And most importantly, will the American public tolerate another drawn-out struggle if the mission extends beyond initial objectives? No country wins simply by firing the first shot. Victory is defined by what comes after, and at this moment, nobody can clearly articulate what after looks like. A final warning from history. The stakes are enormous. This is not a debate about ignoring cartels or tolerating corruption. Everyone agrees the threat is real. What analysts urge is discipline and foresight. Powerful nations have fallen into quagmires by believing speed and strength guarantee success. The United States has bled through that lesson more than once. Without strategy, resolve, and public consent, even the most righteous mission can turn into regret. America now faces a moment of decision. Will it confront criminal empires with a measured, coordinated plan? Or will it once again step into conflict, convinced it will be quick, clean, and controlled, only to discover the path out is far longer and darker than the path in? History offers guidance, but only if listened to. Wars are not born in dramatic speeches. They begin quietly, almost casually, and then suddenly become unavoidable. Today, the United States stands in that quiet moment. What happens next will define not only foreign policy, but the future of stability in the Western Hemisphere. Yeah, if you found this breakdown valuable, if it gave you a clearer picture of what's unfolding beyond the headlines, go ahead and tap that like and make sure to subscribe. Stay informed, stay aware, and as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.